Hello one and all, this is Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. This time around, Ghostwire Tokyo, timed exclusively for the PlayStation 5 and PC. Ghostwire Tokyo is a first-person action-adventure open-world experience, of course set in the area of Tokyo, where you play as Akito, a simple boy who's just driving around on his motorcycle when he is stricken by fog that has enveloped the city and has pretty much raptured all of the citizens that are in the nearby area and potentially beyond. With this rapturing comes the infiltration of these demon enemies that of course will attack Akito. But Akito does have new powers thanks to the invasion of his own body by a unknown detective known as KK. With these specific powers, Akito can fight back and potentially figure out how in the world he can not only save his sister who is stuck in a hospital, but also save the souls that have been overtaken in Tokyo. From a combat perspective, the game is very similar to something like Doom, where you're trying to keep enemies at bay, learn their patterns while they learn your own patterns, while utilizing a plethora of different items and weapons. In the case of this game though, instead of having guns, you have these special abilities that are elemental based. One of the first ones is the wind attack, that is more of a long range attack that doesn't do a lot of damage but does keep enemies at bay, especially if you're able to charge it up and hit with 2 or 3 wind attacks at a time. The water attack is a close range attack that is really good at knocking back enemies to set up those wind attacks if you choose to do so. And then there's the fire attack, that is the both long and close range option that does incredible damage, but when it comes to fire, you have the least amount of ammo available. Water is about mid-grade, and wind of course is the one that you have the most ammo. Thankfully, the areas that you go through and explore are full of rechargeable elements that you can hit with your melee attack, and it will recharge these elemental attacks. So you're really never looking for ammo per se. You can just easily find it and not have to worry about it. The enemies are pretty varied, especially when it comes to their attacks. They have various speeds and attack patterns, and they like to move, swing left and right to try to get you off guard. They hit hard. They can knock down Akito very quickly if the player isn't trying to guard, or in the case of one of these skills that you can learn, perfect block, that parries an attack and actually unleashes the ether that is the ammo replenisher for Akito's powers. Tree of course is not that grandiose, but it does have some very important features that I do enjoy. I'd rather have a skill tree that is small but impactful in terms of combat, and this takes more of the prior, where you have certain things like, as I mentioned, the wind. If you charge it, after you upgrade it once, it will unleash not 2 but 3 wind attacks at one time. Exploration is a big thing when it comes to this game. Not only are you just exploring to unlock different side missions and fast travel points by cleansing shrines, but also discovering lost souls that you can pick up and deposit in a telephone booth. You can also interact with certain animals, specifically dogs and cats. In the case of dogs, will actually give you money if you feed them dog food. One of the big tools in exploration and stealth attacks is the bow. Bows can not only allow for the player to land stealth attacks on unaware enemies, depending on the enemy level, that can be a one-shot kill, but they also clear out corruption sites, which are these trees that poison the area. And once you utilize Akito's spirit site, which is pretty much like detective mode, the weak point of these corruption trees, which allows for Akito to strike the tree with the bow and clear the corruption area, which also unlocks more souls that can be attained. Technically, the game is actually very good. It looks great. The atmosphere of the city is just remarkable. It feels just haunted all the time. Even if you clear out an area of enemies, it still feels like there's something looming over you. There's something following you. There's something that could come around the corner at any time. There are also a plethora of collectibles in terms of statues, different upgrade items that usually are connected to the side missions as well. And of course those spirits that are just littered around Tokyo, both high and low. You can glide and fly and use the Tengus to actually propel Akito to higher places, so you will be traveling both high and low to find everything that is available in this game. The only real aspect I had that was a technical drawback was the frame rate. I felt that the frame rate did drop, especially when you were on higher elevated levels, and also the feeling of movement is a lot more sluggish and slower compared to the average first-person game, especially in a game that you're trying to shoot enemies. They did not try to up the speed to make it even more difficult for the player to avoid attacks and be on their guard when it comes to blocking, which is both a blessing and a curse. Overall, Ghostwire Tokyo isn't a remarkable game. It isn't anything that I say go out and buy right now, but it's a solid open world first person experience that is set in a very unique version of Tokyo with a story that thus far seems pretty interesting. I can't really talk too much about the story because there's a lot of stuff that happens pretty early on that are spoilers, but I will say that from what I've seen thus far, it is a pretty interesting story. It looks like it has the makings of having some nice twists and turns that I will enjoy, hopefully. But as of now, it's a pretty solid story that I don't want to spoil. You can get this one on sale or rent it at, say, Gamefly. I say do so, try it out. And most importantly, if you're playing through a whole bunch of different games right now, I think you can definitely wait to play this a little bit down the road. But it's still definitely a game that is worth your time if you're into this type of genre. So there you have it. This has been Soulful Lordy, James Bullock, once again with another video game first impressions. Ghostwire Tokyo, timed exclusively for the PlayStation 5 and PC. Now if you don't mind, I have to go back, soar through the skies to get some spirits, buy some food and arrows from a shopkeeping cat, and of course make all these demons that have invaded Tokyo say, "Oh Lordy!"